So here are 4 or 5 questions that come to mind automatically when you as a lender, or more importantly you as a borrower, start thinking about credit reports. The first thing is, who collects this report? Where do they get this from? The bureaus, and in India there are 4 licensed bureaus: TransUnion CIBIL, Equifax, Experian and CRIF Highmark. These are licensed, regulated and inspected regularly by the Central Bank of India, which is the Reserve Bank. These bureaus are authorized to collect all data from the lenders, from all the lenders, be they banks, be they NBFCs, be they housing finance companies, cooperative banks, foreign banks. All of them are required to give the data to the bureaus, and the bureaus in turn are producing reports and giving it back to these very institutions. Another question that comes is, can I get a copy of my own report? And the short answer is yes, you can. Sometime in 2015-16, in that financial year, the Reserve Bank of India had directed the bureaus to make certain changes in the way they did their business. And one important component was that they now required all bureaus to be able to give every individual 1 copy of his report free in a year. So for example, if there are 4 bureaus, in 1 year I can access 4 reports over periods of time. I can get a free report from Bureau A, another free report from Bureau B, and so on. Now it's important you as a borrower use this convenience, because one, you want to make sure that there is only data about you, accurate, complete, current and comprehensive. The other thing is that if you are applying for a loan, or expect or plan to apply for a loan for whatever purpose, you don't want surprises just when you are keen to finish the transaction and take the loan in terms of some incomplete data. So it is good that you look at your report once in a quarter. After all, you can get 4 reports free in a year, and therefore make sure that everything that is there is about you, and everything about you is there. A corollary to that is, who else is allowed to see your report? Can, for example, your brother pull your report? Can a colleague at office pull your report? Can your prospective parents-in-law pull your report? Can a company that's hiring you pull your report? The short answer is no, they cannot, because the law very clearly specifies that they can only pull a report if you have applied for a loan and the credit institution is taking a decision. So if I have applied to Bank A, then they are fully entitled to pull my report from any of the 4 bureaus. However, what many companies do is, if for example I am hiring you as a person in my company, I will ask you to pull your free report. Remember, we just talked about that, and submit it to me so I can see your credit behavior and take a decision on whether to hire you or not, keeping your credit behavior in mind. Why is it important? Because this is about fiscal discipline. If somebody is borrowed and not paying back, he is over borrowed, she is in a debt trap, then you might be a little more cautious or wary in terms of whether you want to hire a person who is always stretched in terms of repaying and therefore needs money beyond what he has. Now, one thing that is important is, not all data will always be accurate, complete and comprehensive. So when you see your report, you will see either a mistake, and the mistake could be something as simple as your PAN card is wrong, your name is misspelt, your date of birth is entered wrong, or more importantly, you have repaid a loan or you're paying back on time, but the bureau is showing a report which is still showing you delinquent. Now please understand, that delinquency is not the bureau's doing. The lending institution is what has reported that you are delinquent, and the bureau is merely mirroring that fact. So you obviously want to sort this out. You have 2 options. Either you go to the lending institution which you think, and you know which lending institutions you have taken loans from. You go to the lending institution and actually tell them that, look, my name is spelled like this and not like that, my date of birth is this and not that, my address is pin coded wrong, or I have paid my EMI, I have repaid my loan and you're still showing me outstanding. The bank or the lending institution will then review that complaint or that dispute that you have raised and either correct the data and send it to the bureau for the next update. Alternatively, they will discuss with you and show you why it is that the data is what it is and is therefore accurate. It's possible that you have given the wrong date of birth in your application. It is wrong, but it is not a data entry or a mistake at the lender's side. That is very easy. You just get it corrected. The bank will say, all right, please tell us or show us proof that this is your PAN card, for example, and the number is 12345 and not 54321. Once you've done that, the bank or the lender will update that record to the bureau, and therefore the bureau will reflect your revised accurate data. Another way that you can address your dispute is you can actually go to the bureau. All bureaus are required to provide for a dispute resolution mechanism. That dispute resolution mechanism enables you to log in your dispute, the correction that you want, and then the bureau is required to refer that to the lending institution from which this particular data point has come, and within 1 month, as required by law, this resolution has to be in place. Like I said, either route you take, go straight to the lender or go to the bureau and go to the lender through the bureau. 1 month is what everybody has time to resolve this. Now, resolving does not mean correction always. Resolving could also mean talking to the borrower and explaining why the data is accurate. They've actually not paid and therefore it's showing as delinquent, although the borrower might think he has paid. The resolution of that is very simple. The borrower has to show his bank statement to show that he has paid 12 EMIs last year and not 11 as the bank might be showing. If during the time that this resolution process is going on, which is the 1 month, most bureaus will flag that there is a dispute. The reason they flag it is because then you as a lender looking at a loan to be given now to this customer know that while there is some derogatory information, it is under dispute, and you can either ignore or you can wait or you can clarify the situation so that you have closure in terms of that particular dispute that the customer has raised. Again, this makes it important for you to look at your report regularly, and regularly does not mean every day. It does not mean every month. Once in a quarter or whenever you plan to apply for a loan, I would strongly recommend look at your report. As a borrower, this is extremely important because as we have seen, based on what we've just talked about in this entire module, the credit report is a huge paradigm shift for the lending institution to take a decision for you to be given a loan or not to be given a loan. Now, some of you might be in that fortunate situation where you think you don't need a loan ever, and that's fine. You can be in that situation, and good luck to you. But it's always good to have a good credit report, like it's good to have a good medical report. Now, the next part of this, and which is probably most important, is what does a lender do with a credit report? We've discussed the report, we've discussed the contents, we've given examples, we've resolved disputes, but now the lender in his credit policy has this report. First thing to remember is that the bureau will not tell you whether to give a loan or not. That is entirely the decision of the specific lender. That decision is based upon the credit policy, the underwriting policy, and most importantly, the risk appetite of the lender. So a more risk-averse person or a risk-averse credit underwriter or a risk-averse lending institution will be conservative in its credit policy. For example, it might keep a lower threshold of installment to income ratio. It might choose to give a lower loan than what the person is eligible for because you are a little apprehensive about some component of the credit appraisal that you have conducted for that particular customer. On the other hand, you might find a very aggressive lender. That lender might have a larger appetite for risk and therefore might be willing to give a higher installment to income ratio, might be willing to give a loan even with a relatively lower score compared to, say, the normal accepted by the industry. So you as a lender, the report and the score together, and we will talk about the score in the second module that follows this, is that you need to be sure that your credit policies and your underwriting standards are in sync. And that can only happen if you have the report and the score, but more importantly, you have analyzed your portfolio to see the behavior of your existing portfolio, to see the pattern of the kind of customers that you are now targeting, the profile. Are you targeting microfinance? Are you targeting the informal sector? Are you targeting the high net worth? And then analyze that and write your credit policy. One component of that credit policy will be what to do with a particular score, what to do if a score is above or below or in a different range. And if it's a credit report, then when you see delinquencies, you see check bounces, etc., what should you do to enable you to take a more informed and objective decisioning? As a lender, I am telling you that this is probably the most important module that you could look at. It's not that the others are not for you to understand the industry, but from a day-to-day transaction basis, this and the scoring module that you will also see under our various modules are probably the one that impact you the most. So understand, interpret, and then apply all that you have heard and how it works out in your day-to-day life. As a borrower, extremely important to keep a complete report, a clean report, an accurate report, and a current report. One way of doing that is to look at your report once in 3 months, 6 months. One way of doing that is to ensure that you pay your loans back on time. And that probably is the most important way of looking at the whole thing or the whole credit information industry. Pay your loans on time, borrow what you can borrow, and your report will be clean. However, if there is an error, look at your report and go through the dispute resolution process and sort it out. Thank you.